My name is Greg Shove. I consider myself an AI expert. I'm 63. I type with two fingers. That means if I can figure this out, you can as well. Anyone can. That's the good news. And I'm all in on AI. Since February the 1st, 2023, when I played with ChatGPT Plus for a couple hours, I realized it was going to be the way I would extend my professional career. I live and work in Silicon Valley, the most ageist place in the world. If you're not 28 in a hoodie, you're an idiot. And I realized that AI could make me smart and extend my cognitive life. I've also never made any money really in Silicon Valley after 35 years, unless I've caught a wave. And I thought this would be a pretty big wave. So I repositioned myself and my companies. I run Section. We're an AI accelerator for companies. I started a company a year ago called Machine and Partners. We build applications for other people that are AI based. And then I write a newsletter called Personal Math, and we'll talk about that. It's hard to write a newsletter these days. It's always hard to write a newsletter. It's especially hard when you could outsource the writing to AI. And I'm about to launch a YouTube show about AI called High Low. Here's how I think about AI today in this moment, summer of 2025. I think it's a performance enhancing drug for the ambitious. I think the ambitious and the strongest in our workforces will use AI to pull away from the pack professionally and economically. For those of us who are more content, I think it's a work-life balance hack. I think what's going to happen is we're going to use AI, not necessarily without telling anyone, but we're going to use AI, some of us quietly, and claim back a couple, 3 hours a week and reallocate that time perhaps to yoga or walking the dog or spending more time with our kids. Not a bad trade. I heard someone describe this as in this sort of segment of the workforce, the company won't yet see the gains, meaning the employee is going to get the gains because they'll realize they can get the same amount of work done in less time with AI. And for the slackers, I think it's a pink slip, and it's already happening. And I think this will accelerate. If you don't care about your career or don't invest in your performance, I think AI, and you work in the knowledge economy in a language intensive function, I think AI is a threat to your livelihood. I'm on a mission. I intend to work for 10 more years, and I want to bring as many people into the AI class as possible. I want you to thrive in this age of AI, not atrophy. We have 80 slides in under 60 minutes. We do want to save time for questions. I will talk quickly. AI is a new way of doing an old thing. We've got old hardware. Our 3-ish pounds mass, our brain is about 70,000 years old. And it has 3 primary limitations, as we all know. We forget phone numbers or names as soon as we've met someone. We have limited working memory. We have limited processing power. We can't multitask. We think we can, we actually don't multitask. And we have limited, for survival reasons, we have limited cognitive energy. We conserve energy as humans in order to survive, and we conserve our cognitive energy. So we take mental shortcuts. As Daniel Kahneman called them, so system one shortcuts. We take them all the time to conserve cognitive energy. So we need tools that help us compensate. And since the beginning of time, we've been good at compensating for these cognitive limitations. Humans, admittedly not everyone, but trained humans used to be able to recite the Quran or the Bible from memory. They used to be able to stand in front of an audience and recite Homer's Iliad, 70,000 lines of text from memory. And of course, books came along and we were able to essentially offload that cognitive task to books and reallocate that cognitive energy or that part of our brain to something else. Of course, we've done this with calculators, and of course, we've done this with smartphones, and everybody talks about GPS. I think appropriately, it's a good example. It's a narrow use case, but it's a good example of how we have lost really our ability to spatially think, if you will, as we rely so heavily on GPS. It's called cognitive offloading. And now big tech, Silicon Valley, about 7, 8 years ago now, maybe it's 10, so started down this journey, I guess, from their perspective of seeing if they could create the greatest cognitive offloading tool in the history of mankind, and they have. And it was unleashed on the world about 2.5 years ago. It's, of course, generative AI, and we love it. It is getting smarter. And in fact, Grok 4, Elon Musk's AI, just announced that I think they went past 45% on their score for humanity's last exam. Kind of a sick joke, I think, for Silicon Valley to call this a benchmark, humanity's last exam. It's a test that no human can pass, obviously. AI is getting smarter. It's performing better against these human benchmarks. Admittedly, these are not real life benchmarks or applications. These are academic, and likely the AI companies tune their models to perform better because these are the benchmarks by which they brag about their performance, but they are indications of the progress that these AI systems are making. Having said that, at the same time, they still hallucinate at the same levels as they did, as far as I can tell, about 2 years ago. So I call AI a genius and a clown, moments of genius and moments of clownish behavior. We know their playbook, it's to make it cheaper and cheaper so we'll use it more and more. So we'll depend on it more and more. So the cost has dropped dramatically, over 250 times in the last 2 years in terms of the cost of AI. If we think AI is beneficial to humanity, this is a good thing. More people get access to this co-intelligence. India is OpenAI's second largest market after the United States. That could be a great thing for humanity in terms of accessibility. So depending on what forecasts or predictions you believe in, it looks like ChatGPT will pass 1 billion users sometime by the end of this year, already at 600, 700, 800 million, let's say. So about 10% of humanity are using AI. That's incredible just after 2.5 years. So obviously revenue is exploding at these companies, both OpenAI, Anthropic, and others. What's really interesting to me is this research. This is, I think, the 3rd year. This team looks at Reddit and basically mines data on Reddit on use cases, people talking about how they use AI. What I find fascinating about this here is the shift. And what we're seeing is essentially these uses of AI around thought. I mean, most of this is thought, I admit. It's all really related to, these are thinking machines. So this is all sort of thought at one level. When you look at sort of the type of thought, meaning more personal thought, partnership, therapy, companionship, these use cases are at the top of the leaderboard. I think this is the biggest surprise for all of us, certainly big tech, meaning this is one of AI's superpowers. It is a tremendous thought partner, a tremendous companion. Its hallucinations in this context create less risk for users versus business use cases, where hallucinations obviously create risk. So this is, I think, is really an emerging but stunning story around how we will be using AI, which is concerning at one level in terms of losing our minds, because we're using these technologies in very intimate ways, in ways that will really influence us, our thinking, how we write, how we talk, how we love. AI is going to change that. So obviously investors with all this growth are funding this experiment. And I think about this as an experiment. And I think about us as the lab rats. Silicon Valley's decided that they should run an experiment on us, on humanity, to see over the next 10 or 20 years, can we thrive in the age of AI? Will this be good for us? And governments, certainly the United States and China, have basically decided to let it rip and see how this experiment goes. But our new superpower will come at a cost. Thinking is hard. Most of us don't really want to do it. And now we're seeing research, and I would again admit this research is early. Some of the sample sizes are very small and they're not real world, but they're the signals we should pay attention to in terms of what's happening to our brain. AI removes the friction from thinking, even in the higher order thinking like synthesis and evaluation. People are finding gains, right? Less effort required to do those higher level cognitive tasks with AI. We're starting in some cases to turn our brains off. This recent study, I think, got a lot of headlines, and we should, again, take these studies with a grain of salt, particularly if we read about them in the media, because the narrative is one that is either going to excite us beyond reality or scare us beyond reality. This is probably, I'd say the headlines on this one were more about scaring us, but they did measure with students in terms of taking tests, kind of the level of brain activity with or without AI. We are losing our motivation to think for ourselves once we've collaborated with AI. We get bored more easily when we're working on our own. That makes sense. Some of us do like to work on our own. A lot of us, we're social creatures. We like to work with others, and AI can be a stand-in for other humans, and that can be more exciting or interesting or distracting to work with AI versus on our own. And the more we trust AI, the less we critically think. I find this particularly paradoxical, meaning we want the AI companies to reduce hallucinations, and because we want our trust level in the answers and the work to be higher. But the more we trust AI, and the companies that produce them will likely outsource more of our thinking to them, which creates the risk that I want us to mitigate. And we'll talk about that today. Dustin Curtis is a writer. I love this quote because, as I mentioned at the outset, I write a weekly newsletter called Personal Math. And what I've noticed the last year is that in some ways it's getting much easier and in some ways harder. I think this is the tension when we work with AI. What's easier is when I've had a bad week or I've been lazy or a hungover, although I don't drink much anymore. So I'm not really hungover, at least from alcohol. So, in those moments, I need AI to help me, and I'll get help, either inspiration for the topic or really to help me write the post. At the same time, though, I realize if I don't write something unique and interesting and original and authentic from lived experience, then why read it? The audience can read it, can kind of get the answer, if you will. They can get the point from AI. And so it's challenged me to write better and more personally at the same time. But in general, I think we're seeing that the more we rely on AI, it can diminish both our motivations and our creativity. This cognitive dependence is starting to spread in the real world, as you might expect. Hence, every parent and school administrator freaking out about students cheating with AI in terms of their homework or assignments all the way through college. Is the college essay dead? I think is a fair question. We'll find out. I would say it's on life support currently. It's not just college kids. It's obviously lawyers and all of us increasingly outsourcing the output of what we're required to create to AI. And soon, of course, it will be other professions, including doctors. And in some cases, and I've talked to a lot of doctors the last 3 years, due to my cancers, I get better answers from GPT at least a third of the time. So it's not surprising that we're going to rely on AI for some of this kind of advice. It's going to get worse because big tech's business model is dependency. They do this by promising to reduce friction, which we love. We love a life of less friction. So apparently we could allocate that, not necessarily and hopefully to more work, but to more pursuits, more leisure pursuits. And of course, big tech is promising that maybe we won't work in the future and we'll sit around and collect our checks and write poetry. I don't think so. I think we're just going to work harder. But big tech needs us to be dependent to drive their business models. And they're really good at this, developing these dependent business models. And some of the most valuable companies in the world today are now built on removing our friction and developing our dependence. And our biology is no match for their technologies. Don't feel bad. This is really important. Will be very hard to resist. Social media was impossible to resist. These technologies tap into our biological weaknesses, if you will. They tap into our need to conserve cognitive energy. They tap into our love of dopamine. It's not your fault. We can do something about it, though. But our brain does favor quick wins. And that's when we feel the dopamine. Often then we don't have the time, won't invest in the struggle that's needed to feel the serotonin. But dependence can become addiction, especially with these tools. And you'll notice this if you're a user of AI, of any of these LLMs. I'm a genius, according to ChatGPT. I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. My insights are brilliant. I mean, the way these AIs talk to us make us feel really good. Now, you'll notice more and more in the last 6 months how the AIs are good at offering to complete the task. Do you want a presentation? Do you want an outline? Would you like me to make a first draft? right? They realize that we really do want to outsource more and more to them, and the more we do, the more dependent we'll become on them. So they're being programmed by their makers for us to encourage us to outsource to AI more. This is a feature in only available to developers via the Google Gemini API, but I think this is a sense of our future, which is this AI is basically looking over my shoulder now. I'm screen sharing with Gemini, and the AI is looking over my shoulder and is ready to help me at a sort of at a moment's notice, if you will. It essentially will be living with these AIs. They'll be around us. They'll have better memory about us. For those who are GPT users, you'll notice, I'd say, a little improvement so far in terms of the conversations because of memory. I think, again, just an indication of what's to happen, which is robust memory, bigger context windows, conversations that carry over a longer period of time, with the AI holding its knowledge about us, our lives, our family, and so on. So I think we're just getting started here in terms of these companies' ability to build these tools so that we really do become dependent upon them. These guys are controlling our AIs. There's probably, I don't know, half a dozen, maybe 10 at most at this point. And it's important to remember they have their own agendas. They're not here to help humanity. They're not here to find the cure for cancer or to reform and fix education. We do have a shortage of 250,000 high school teachers in the United States. We need to do something about that. AI could possibly, be part of that solution, but these people don't care about that. Entrepreneurs do, and others do. They're here to make money and generate power and influence. I think that's what these guys are all about. I think really at this point, we're betting on this guy doing the right thing. This is the company with 75 to 80% market share, OpenAI's ChatGPT. And I think we're betting on Sam Altman, who's 38 years old, married with his first son. I think we're betting on him growing up to be a good human and doing the right thing, not tipping the scale with his thumb in terms of how the AI will influence us, how we vote or how we think, but give us a high quality, truthful AI. I think at this point, this is our best hope. And I want to go high-low with the good news, because I see this every day in my life, in the life of our company, in the life of the companies I work with, with our customers. The low of this, the good news that I see is this is accelerating people and lubricating their careers, both up and cross. So what I mean by that is people who aren't financial analysts can get good at financial analysis. People who aren't coders, we've all heard about vibe coding. People who aren't coders can begin to code and or build something, not rely on someone else. So what I do see is mobility happening, particularly with younger people in terms of their careers, if they adopt and use these capabilities. Certainly they can cut corners, and we all will cut corners to some extent with AI in terms of cognitive corners. But I'm really seeing people being able to flex into creating more value for themselves, their organizations, their teams. And I think that that's a good thing. And just one example, I do think we're gonna get all kinds of breakthroughs in art, in medicine, in some of our toughest problems. I think absolutely, really smart, brilliant people will take these technologies and capital from investors and persevere and find answers to problems and questions that we have not been able to solve yet. So I think there's going to be all kinds of good. And also, I think it'll make our economy more competitive, make our companies more competitive. And that historically has been a good thing. The transitions are hard, obviously. But typically, these technologies, we've used them to become that much more competitive and to drive our GDP, which is a good thing. The United States is 17% of the world's GDP and about 7% of the world's population. We are a very productive country, specifically talking about the US. And I will likely be more productive. And I think that's a good thing when distributed if we can distribute, maybe is the question, that wealth across our population. That's a short answer to a big question, right? I just want us all to be aware of the agendas of the companies making these technologies. It's to build their businesses. And the second thing is I want us to be aware of this will tend to take us to dependency. This has the potential and the power for us to become dependent upon it. And I don't think that's a good thing when you think about our brains, about thinking. So how do you extend your mind, augment your mind without losing it? And because I believe we can all do better work using AI. I was at a dinner last night in Chicago, which is where I am today, obviously, about 25 people, all of them power AI users. All of them feel like they've augmented and improved their work life, their productivity with AI. I believe we have a choice, though, to do it one of two ways: to be an AI driver or an AI passenger. To be a passenger will be very tempting. And I think, frankly, many will choose this route. This is the lazy route. This is the route in which we defer to AI. This is what an AI passenger looks like. I do not want you to be a passenger. Passengers get quickly too comfortable with the output of AI. They cut and paste the output of AI. They sort of believe the AI companies in terms of trusting by default that AI is always right. And again, this will be hard to resist because there are moments where these AIs are brilliant, many moments where they're brilliant. So we will inevitably trust them more and more over time. I think passengers will get good enough at AI, but not actually advance their skills. These technologies are not standing still. They're doubling in capability pretty much every 6 months. And I think passengers will sort of learn how to prompt well enough to get the output, cut and paste the output, hit send, and go walk the dog. In the short term, I think that's fine. You'll get more work-life balance. I just don't think that's a way to, career relevance. I think passengers will lose confidence in their own judgment or not even make the effort to bring their own judgment and intuition and creativity and lived experience to their conversations with AI. Passengers use AI like Google often. Someone last night at dinner said that she was sitting with someone quite senior in her company who was complaining about Microsoft Copilot, and she asked him to show a prompt or how he was using it, and he basically showed that he cut and paste something he'd already made, like a deck or a doc, into AI, and just the prompt was, make it better. That's not going to work. But that's how people are trying to use these tools. Passengers defer to AI. I want us to be drivers. Drivers manage their AI. Drivers, in my opinion, become superhumans. They really are able to augment themselves cognitively and productivity-wise with AI. They ask good questions. They know that it's having a conversation with AI, that they don't allocate 2 or 3 minutes to an important conversation with AI. They allocate 10 or 15 minutes. Sure, there are sometimes you're in a jam, you need an answer, you need to be prepared for a meeting, you're in the car or whatever, in the back of an Uber and you're about to meet a customer, whatever the scenario might be, and you'll use AI that way. Most of the time, you should not be using AI that way. You're having a conversation effectively with a teammate or coworker. You will improve the output that AI provides you. You will choose the right AIs for different tasks. You will likely, if you're a driver, be using more than one AI. You can probably just use one. ChatGPT is probably the Swiss Army knife of AIs today, but you're likely, if you're a driver, knowing that you want to pick a different tool, perhaps. You might have 2 to 3 tools in your AI toolbox. You will check the work. You will verify the output. We should be teaching high school kids this. We should not be telling them they're cheating using AI. We should be offering new classes, probably in middle school, and one of them should be how to work with AI and how to verify or fact check AI. This should be a skill we teach kids. Beijing School District has mandated 8 hours of AI training every year in the school curriculum. That may not sound like a lot, but it starts at the age of 6. So we need to teach our kids how to work with AI. We need to use AI selectively. Drivers know when not to use AI. Again, it will be tempting. It will be hard to resist, but we really do need to either approach a decision human first, so the first draft comes from the human, or human only. And I'm sure soon we'll have AI-free hours or AI-free days, and we'll need them. We'll need them to allow our brains to turn back on. It's a muscle. If we don't use it, it will atrophy. And AI drivers never say in a meeting, like others have to me, well, AI said this or AI suggested this. That's a fast way, in my mind, to a pink slip. No one who works for me can blame the AI. If you're a driver, you own the decision, you own the recommendation, you own the investment, you own the hire, whatever it is, it's on you, not AI. I want us to be drivers. To summarize, drivers think critically, validate the output, maximize the quality, always are learning how to work with AI as these tools continue to improve and change. And drivers teach others. Drivers help others out. Coworker, a friend, a family member, someone in your community or church. Passengers blindly accept, don't think, maximizes shortcuts and minimizes effort. And often they hide their AI and don't help others. Be a driver. I love this quote, Charles Kettering, the father of sort of innovation, if you will, and systems thinking, one of them, a problem well stated is a problem half solved. I think that's a really great maxim or North Star, if you will, when you work with AI. If you can't even describe the problem, don't start working with AI. Pause and invest your cognitive effort to describe the challenge, the problem, the decision you're trying to make. Frame it up well for AI. You'll just have a much better conversation. You'll be able to vet the output that much better. You'll be able to improve the output from AI. So I would use this. I'd screenshot this right now and then stick this next to your monitor. All right, if you use AI, I think it's like borrowing 30 points of IQ. I stole this. I think Mo Gadot said this, or maybe he stole from somebody else. But I think this is the possibility, obviously, and it's good. Again, if we can drive our AIs, if we can manage our AIs, set yourself right. This is my setup at home. You see on the right-hand side, my AI monitor. It's the monitor with the vertical horizon, or orientation rather, and it's my AI monitor. I've got one browser open there, 3 tabs, Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT, and I did that starting in January. I used to have a Post-it note on my monitor that says, ask AI. That's the cheap version of this. So if you don't do that, because you find yourself not remembering to ask AI or work with AI, I do want you working with AI a lot. So, and if you're not AI native, which means if you're not like 17 years old, then you probably at times you don't remember to work with AI. So the Post-it note's the cheap version. This is the $100 hack, which is an AI monitor. It puts AI in your line of sight. It also puts AI not in your main workspace. So I did this deliberately. I work with AI and then I decide what to cut and paste and bring over into my primary workspace, into my documents, into my decks, into my chats, and so on. So that's sort of how I've set it up. You'll find what works for you. But this might sound like a contradiction, but what I'm encouraging you to do is go all the way up to this line and not cross over it, meaning use AI a lot effectively. Borrow the 30 points of IQ, but pay attention. If there's too little friction in your cognitive life, you've tipped over, you've crossed that line and you're a passenger, and you'll need to bring yourself back. This is what we didn't do with social media. This is what we need to be really aware of, I think, in this age of AI. Here's my advice for you. Think of AI as a work partner, not a tool. I think a lot of people do approach, including CEOs and CIOs, they approach AI like it's another software deployment or another digital transformation. It's not. It is this weird and powerful technology that's like a co-intelligence that gets to know us and can sort of seduce us and tempt us. This is not software. This is more like a work partner. I would start running all your medium to high stakes decisions by AI. I would get in the habit, both at home, travel, medical, parenting, and at work, running decisions that matter to you by AI. AI is a fantastic thought partner, does not have the blind spots we have, does not have limited cognitive energy, unlike us, and so on. So I would use AI in this way. You won't follow AI's advice. My guess is what will happen is you'll somewhat optimize some of these decisions, not all of them, but the friction or the cost is very low. And at the same time, you'll learn how to work with AI. And then take a walk every day. Take a problem and get outside and think about it. That's my advice for each of us. For leaders, insist that your employees be drivers. Explain to them the difference between passengers and drivers, and ask your employees to be drivers. You want a team or an organization that is managing their AIs. I believe the whole organization will get the same cognitive lift and productivity gain if they use AI the right way. Be explicit, talk about it transparently in meetings, in team meetings. What are human only tasks, or what is the role of AI in certain tasks? Do we go to AI first, or does the human start the draft and does the AI complete? Or do we start with the AI and the human improve? There's no right answer. It's context and task specific, but talk about it based on the type of team you are and the type of skills your team has. We just finished a 2-day offsite, a leadership offsite in Chicago. Of course, we were using AI all the time. Of course, we had AI note takers. We got a great summary this morning of the whole meeting, in part, from our chief of staff, Anna, but obviously powered by AI in terms of an AI note taker. At the same time, we did a 2-hour strategy exercise. We did something called Michael Porter's 5 Forces, an oldie but goodie. It's a strategy framework. It's probably 40 years old. I don't know how old 5 Forces is. But that was a struggle because we didn't use AI. We just sat there and kind of worked through a thinking task. Michael Porter's 5 Forces. Try it, especially relevant today in the age of AI. We should all be doing it for our businesses. But human only. Struggle and lead by example. Do not be one of these leaders and CEOs running around talking about AI and how we're going to be AI first and AI native and AI this, and not know how to use it and do it, and not face your own struggles with finding AI's role in your own cognitive life. For parents, don't let schools opt your kid out of AI. Don't outsource, in my opinion, do not outsource this conversation about AI to your school. That is irresponsible and lazy. You're the parent. And frankly, schools are struggling to keep up with what's happening. The good news is these AI companies, there were 2 announcements in this past week. Microsoft, a $4 billion grant, and then other AI companies with one of the federal teachers union, putting significant resources and effort into figuring out how teachers in schools will use AI. But that's going to take years. These are large systems and institutions. So that, these investments and the change in the curriculum and the change in the way we teach will take years. You cannot wait, and you cannot outsource this, in my opinion, to the school. You are the parent. You own this conversation with your kid. Teach them, show them how to use AI without cheating. Teach them how to use AI to learn, not just to create the output or the outcome that they have to submit, and sit beside them and do this work with them. It's your responsibility as a parent. Otherwise, they'll graduate as passengers. That's not going to end well for them professionally. I met my wife in college over 40 years ago. And one Friday, I guess late afternoon, we decided to drive to New York. We were in London, Ontario, University of Western Ontario, Harvard of the North. And we decided to drive to New York for the weekend. And she had a car. I didn't have a car. We didn't have a lot of money. And, we left late. Obviously didn't know where we were going. Probably had to pull over at a gas station and buy a map and make our way to New York. We actually had to stop and stay in a motel because we couldn't get to New York the first night. This trip had everything, right? It had Motel 6. It had Empire State Building. It had Times Square. It had Washington Square Park down in Soho. And that's when I realized my wife, besides being smart and beautiful, was resilient and adventurous. She could drive, she could navigate. And I decided to, at that point, basically to marry her. I fell in love with her. And every time we're in New York, and we're often down in Soho, we often stay with my good friend Scott Galloway, or I had his apartment. We will walk over to Washington Square Park and sit there and remember that drive. And my grandkids won't learn to drive. I just moved to San Francisco. Cindy and I now live in the city. Last Wednesday, we've been taking Waymos pretty much every day. This is incredible technology. Talk about even less friction than Uber. You don't even, and I caught myself a couple times this past week turning to say thank you to the driver and realizing there was not a driver. I love this. I love Waymo, and I'm sad about the fact that my grandkids may not take that drive and endure that friction and figuring out how to get to New York with someone who could become their wife of 41 years. So if you find yourself enjoying too much cognitive convenience, take a pause, step back, take a walk, and go find some cognitive friction. You guys, I want to acknowledge you for showing up today. You're amazing. You are investing in yourselves. You are participating in this moment, presumably not just for yourself, but for those around you. So I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you. Credit where credit is due. I got lots of help, longtime collaborators, including Ed and Tara, and my cognitive scientist friends, Dr. Zahar Yusuf and Lucas Miller, who I've worked with now for close to a decade. And I rely on them to keep me honest around the biology of our brains and the potential impact. And they share, I would say, my concerns around this risk of dependency and our atrophying brains if we over rely, if we become AI passengers. And of course, we use AI in the creation of this presentation and this content. And if you want to become a driver and you're new to AI, an AI driver, that is not a car driver, check out Prof AI, prof.ai. It's an AI coach to teach you AI. It's kind of meta, I get it, but we use AI so we can create a personalized, quite frankly, it's an amazing experience because you tell Prof AI who you are, where you work, what job, what company, what role, and immediately your learning experience, your coaching experience is customized based on who you are. When you play with Prof AI for a few minutes, you realize this will be the future of all learning and coaching. It will never again be one size fits all. And so we are making Prof AI free to consumers. Companies have to pay. We want 1 million people in the AI class as fast as possible, and we want to do what we can to make that happen. So Prof AI for consumers is at no cost. We'll bear the inference cost. We'll bear the cost of the tokens so you can join the AI class.